there's hardly any fraud or cybercrime that is successful without an insider
Playing a role.
And why is that? You see, we build layers. We call it defense in-depth, right?
Yeah.
Defense upon defense. You look at the network layer, you look at the database, you look at the applications, you look at the servers, you look at the whole infrastructure.
Access control, the rest.
But don't forget that the weakest link in all of this is the human.
Is the human.
And because the human is the weakest link, and again, a human being, mood changes from time to time.
Yeah.
A human being that is perfectly okay this minute, tomorrow, due to motivation, due to rationalization, and again, due to pressure, can give in to, committing fraud.
Absolutely.
So insider threat is a major issue when it comes to cyber crimes, when it comes to fraud.
Absolutely.
And I think, from a larger perspective, in as much as we can put a lot of mitigants to stop the bad guys from coming in, the firewalls, well configured and all of that to keep the bad guys out. The guys that are inside, they already know all your controls. And
it's pretty easy to open the door.
it's very easy. It's just like you are protecting your house with a big gate, and you have a gate man there.
Yeah.
If the gate man is compromised, the thieves don't need to do much. It opens the door and they have access. So insider threat is something that we need to really look at, and we really need to look at a way to curb insider threat. And again, if you look at it, you mentioned internal controls.
Yes.
Most of the problems emanate from weak internal controls.
Absolutely.
Because internal controls are meant to be the ones to perform the daily, day-to-day reviews across all other departments. But if internal control, if they are not strong, and if you don't have an internal audit, that sits at the third layer of defense, right, that supervises the internal control to ensure that internal control is adequate at all times, then there is a problem.
Exactly.
So you can see that this issue of insider threat is a major issue. And the three lines of defense need to play a major role in curbing.
Absolutely.
Control isn't the control of this, it's art.
Exactly.
Yes.
The reality is that what you just said now, it's quite obvious, because you know what? When an organization control environment is weak, that organization truly opens a door for major surprises. Let me give you an instance. There was an organization where I worked. I was asked to come and help the audit, the IT audit then, back it's more than 18 years ago. Then I was the head of an IT audit for a bank, IT audit and control. I was the group head IT audit and control for that bank. So that bank poached me from that other bank, said I should come and head IT audit and control. When I got in there, the first thing I did was to carry out an assessment of the control environment.
If you're going to be responsible for it, you need to know what it is.
Yes.
Exactly.
So when I carried out an assessment of the control environment of that very organization, the bank, I said, wow, what I saw was weak control environment. I said, look, if the guys here have never committed fraud, they must be saints. If there's no fraud going on here, big time, they must be saints. And then, in fact, Leko worked with me in one of those banks also. And then we carried out a review of what we wanted to do. We looked at even their application development process and the ways by which they also onboard application to the environment. We also reviewed the role of personnel within the organization and how roles were well segmented. We discovered that there are no proper checks and balances, there are no well segmented roles and responsibilities, which means that a single guy is empowered to do multiple things that can even expose the organization. Okay. So what we decided to do was, first of all, for us to carry out a database integrity review for that organization. Okay, so we did what's called balanced computation, taking various subsidiary files for front transfer, files for deposit, files for loans, and then we did a recomputation compared to what the system produced. What we saw was staggering, mind-blowing. We saw
so you manually did it.
Yes, and compared. So when we did that review, what we saw was mind-blowing. We saw some accounts that the balances they were showing was far from what should be the real balance. We now delved into investigating those balances. And what happened? We traced to find out who these very accounts that had issues, whom are they transacting with? Where is the money going? When we did all the funds, when I did the computation, we discovered that the guy who was behind some of the accounts is an internal guy. The guy used to be a developer within that organization. He was involved in development, and then he was then moved to another role, but then still had the same privileged access. So this guy created a kind of a backdoor within the application that each time he goes to the bank to lodge money, if he lodges 10,000 naira, it becomes 100,000 naira. If he lodges 100,000 naira, it becomes 1 million naira. So the guy was multiplying his lodgement, but what the guy also did was that very transaction, okay, will not reflect on the transaction journal. Because the internal control guy, the auditors rely on the journal to do their call over. So the guy, because they had also a solid access in the system, he disables those transactions, so it will not show on the transaction journal, on the TJ.